Are creative musicians done by the age of 30? If we are an artistic person, is our big creative statement made by the time we leave our 20s? And if we haven't done it by then, is it never going to happen? And is that quite troubling for some people to realise that, if that is the case? Now, this subject actually covers a whole host of different sub-subjects. If we really want to talk about it in detail, we have to really analyse what we mean by creative. I think that would be the first thing we need to do. And then we would need to look at examples which seem to I get up in the morning, I come here, I sit down, I now have a posh microphone, right, and I've worked the lighting out so it looks nice, finally. So after 4 years of doing YouTube, I'm actually happy, sort of, with the quality of the product I'm putting out. See, I do consider these things, you see. I do want to be a good YouTuber, and I do want to put out stuff that's good. But there's a lot of chaos in mine. Even though I've got a nice place to shoot my videos, mine is not some sort of black platonic space where everything's tidied up. As you can see behind me, it's pretty chaotic, isn't it? Chaos and order. I believe that art is the sublime balance between perfectionism and hedonism, and that relates to our perception of the universe, which I think has a sort of dialectic which contradicts each other but also lines up with each other, which is the idea of chaos and order. I've just sat down now to do this video, which is based upon something that I've seen Rick Beato mention a couple of times on his channel. It's a really interesting thing, and it's something that I sort of assume as well, is that most creative people, they're done by 30. But then, as I start to do the video, okay, I start talking, and I'm trying to be very ordered because I want to be like a serious YouTuber today. I want to sit down and almost like an essay, lay out my introduction and then have my definitions, then go through the examples, analyse the examples and come out with a conclusion. So I start to do that, and there's something nagging away at me inside, and it's just like, this is rubbish. Who wants to watch this? People come here to be entertained. They expect something to go in a direction they didn't expect. They expect something that the unexpected. Yeah, they've been brought here by the promise of the video. Yes, you've been brought here by the promise of the video. That might be a bit interesting, but it's not that interesting really, is it? To think about it, you know, could be the case, you know. What's compelling? I think that's a better question. Why is this compelling? Why have I chosen to speak about it today? And I think it's because there's a worry. My audience is like me. We're all pretty old. They're all trying their best to, you know, do their thing. In fact, a YouTuber sent me the other day a video of them with a note, and it said, this is what us normal people get up to, Andy. The people who watch your channel, and go, we get up in the daytime and we plug our guitar in or whatever it is, and we just play and we just try and express something. And it's like, was like almost like a will to power. It's like shaking your fist almost at God and saying, I exist. And this extremely visceral guitar solo on video, I was very impressed by. It really did seem to explore something that was definitely over on the hedonistic, visceral end of art. And that feeling of getting your stuff out there and people are watching it and they're either responding well or not so well, but hopefully everyone responds to the spirit of creativity. Everyone responds to that. And so you all go, yeah, I wasn't doing keen, I don't seem to be rubbish, or someone said, oh, this is brilliant. And whatever you're thinking, we're involved in something creative. You are the viewer, and me, and the guy that sent me in the video, won't say his name, he can announce himself in the comments if he wishes. We are the creators, and creator needs an audience, the audience needs a creator, and there is another dialectic that happens. You're talking around the subject, Andy. Why? Because you want creativity to be in the video. You don't want this to be a dry academic video, just you talking about it. You want to talk about it, but also be showing it. So as you start to explain why you think it is possibly the case that people over 30, that they've past their creative peak, by the same token, you've actually created a video that works on two levels, right? And there's a lot of creativity involved. There is your impromptu strange tune at the start. There is the video you've just done with your viewer. All right, so now we've set at a stall, and here I am, 57, and every day I get up, as I always have done my whole life, and I am creative every single day. And if I'm not creative, I will go mad. Having a YouTube channel is great for me because YouTube needs a lot of content, and I'm always ready to create content. I now wake up in the morning, and every day I have a purpose. And I get in the car and I come here and I walk into this room and think, what shall I do? And I have a very strong idea that I've been thinking all through the night before. But when I arrive and I start, chaos peeks its head up, and something always happens that I'm not ready for. And before I know it, I'm singing a little song. And where does that come from? And why did it happen? Because it wasn't me. You know, I didn't plan to do any of this. You can see this is all chaotic. This is all... It's something else, isn't it? So I'm being creative. Now, I would say creating something is not necessarily creative. It's not that sort of creativity we are talking about. You know, if, for example, a button comes off your trousers and they're falling down, if you wear trousers, and you're in a bit of a, you know, thing, and you haven't got a button, and you don't want to walk around and your trousers fall down, you might look around the room and you might be able to fashion something that will keep your trousers up. Maybe there's a paper clip that you find. Now, the paper clip isn't designed to keep your trousers up, but you have created something with that paper clip. You have looked at the utility of your environment, and then with your head, you have reached out to the environment and you have created something. That is a type of creativity, but it's not like the creativity I think that artists do.
A friend of mine, who should remain nameless, primarily because he wasn't baptized. And he was, this is a true story, please believe me, this is true. He got dysentery, right? So he had to walk to Waterloo about 25 minutes before the rush hour started. And he started a walk thing, and it was really very bad. And he had on the way to the station, he had a terrible accident, you know. And he thought, I can't go on like this. So he saw a supermarket and he rushed in and he sort of walked around and said, look, can I have he says, no, I've got a disease of the legs. So they said, can you give me a pair of underpants and a pair of trousers, medium size? He said, well, great. He said, no, I'm just going to park the car. So he kept moving around outside. He looked through and said, oh, got him right. So he came in and got this plastic bag and gave me the any part with the trousers and things in it, rushed up with the train, and by then it was rush hour. And he thought, my God, I can't go in a compartment. He was just reeking by now, you know what I mean? So he thought, the loo, the car seat. So he got into the car, he locked the door like this, and waited for the train to start, and then he took these trousers off, and these underpants, and he threw them out the window. Right? The tank off for that. And then he opened the plastic bag, and it was a lady's pink cardigan. Yeah, he's going to get off the train and they say, well, train is coming out to the station, take all the things. So he's wearing a Trilby hat, a jacket, collar and tie, and naked from the waist downwards with the pink lady's cardigan. So in desperation, he pulled his legs. He pulled his leg. Pulled it back. So he realised where the neck was, all his wedding tackle was hanging out. Just coming up the platform, so he thought that's the English at their best, and so he took his chubby hat off, and he tucked the brim all around. Oh, this is not a lie, please. This is not a lie. Don't make this up. This is a true story.
Artists are actually residing in a world which is absolutely okay. There are no problems. There are no problems at all, but the artist doesn't see it like that. The artist peers into a world that seems okay, and they do see problems. And they try and present these problems to everybody else. So there is something which is unbalanced in the creative person, you know.
Do you notice as the day goes on, the colour of the sea changes almost by the minute, doesn't it?
It's a wonderful blue, isn't it?
It is lovely. And the reds of the roofs there against the water really jump out at you, don't they?
Very vivid.
And the white walls with those windows there, very dark, almost black.
Johnny.
Black, yes, black. I shall need to get the black out.
Johnny.
Black.
Johnny.
Black. Black. Black for the sky and the sea. Black. All black, like the procession of night that leads us into the valley of despair. Where are we sleeping tonight, Mother? In Father's grave?
Some people will want to create order where there's chaos, and some people will want to create chaos where there is order. I am trying to do both on this video. I am trying to present something which is at once chaotic and ordered, and I'm hoping that within that there'll be something profound that comes out of that. Might be right, I might be wrong. I'm attempting to do it. Why am I doing this? Because I've got something important to say? No. It's because, as I said, if I don't get up in the morning and create every single day, the demons pop up. And those demons will almost like take that urge to do something, right? To do something aesthetic, to reorganize my world so that something creative could happen. And I'm almost like the audience of it. I enjoy being the audience of it. You know, I enjoy... Hello? Who's this? Hello? It's me. Yeah, it's me in the future. Yeah, you've got it right. I'm doing the video about creativity and, you know, are you past it? Yeah, and so that's bonkers. Yeah, well, of course, you know what I'm about to talk about, don't you? Now, don't tell me. Well, I know you're not going to tell me. But you thought you'd interject at this point in time. That's quite interesting, that is. So, is there anything I need to know? What white have you called up for? Yeah. Ah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's right. You were this is a bit of chaos and order at the same time. The telephone. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. Have you thought about it in the future? Yeah, it's right. So do you want? Well, I maybe you know about it in the future because you rang back and told me. You've just rung me up and told me how the telephone is actually it's ordered chaos and chaotic order, isn't it? Yeah. I hadn't thought that. I just thought it was a funny thing that when I can't think of something, I can just pretend that someone's called me up on the phone. But here you are ringing me up for the future, telling me why me. I am telling myself why I've done something. That can't happen in real life. This rarely happens, doesn't it? Yeah. Rarely happens that this would happen like this, isn't it? that you in the future, being wise, can ring up you in the past and tell you something. You know, that doesn't happen. We're always trying to reach out. Yeah. Well, I don't need to bother now because you've just told me. But I'm pretty sure you know about the creative, aesthetic, creative reason why I've got a telephone on a plinth next to me. You know what it is because I've just I've sort of told you now. Because you've just told me. Yeah, I know. I can't work it out either. It's like a conundrum, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Look, what are you up to? I wouldn't want to know. Okay, mate. Is everyone still alive? Oh, just don't tell me that. What about my dog? Is he doing all right? Oh, what a naughty boy. All right, then. I won't see you later. Well, I will when I arrive in the future and I am you in the future. But I assume you'll be somewhere else unless you are me. So, it's confusing. These time travel things always make me confused. All right, just you bugger off. Bye. Bye-bye. Yeah, so I've just rang myself up from the future and said, do the audience realise that the telephone is a sublime embodiment of chaos and order? Because in the middle of a structured video, someone can call up and throw a spanner into the works. But also, in having that, it's like an outside agency, which is actually me, steps in and orders something and creates something else out of that. And it's an artistic conceit, you see, because I could well be phoning myself from the future, or I could just be talking to into an old phone and making it up. But whatever it is, it's my creative expression. And I want you to sit there and go, well, I was quite entertained by that. And it was quite funny to be called up by yourself in the future. And the fact that, you know, that makes you think about things in a funny way. And Andy's trying to get me to think. But it's actually quite entertaining at the same time. Hopefully this is entertaining. You don't quite know where it's going. You know, what's it. Doesn't matter. I mean, I could talk a load of rubbish. You could follow it through. Oh, that's quite interesting. I can make no sense at all. But you will be dragged along by the entertainment in the video. There's entertainment. And then there's a sort of conceptual meaning of what we're trying to do. And those things balance. So this is what creativity is. Some people are inclined to get up and do this, and they don't really know what it is. They cannot discover something about the universe. I think that's something that's really important when we create. I'm not creating because I know. I'm not trying to impart wisdom to you. I don't know. But within the conceit of this YouTube video and the conceit of my phone with the microphone here and the fact that I'm going to go back in and turn that little tune at the start into some like much more involved tune using overdubbing and technology and all that, the sort of technology of this art form of YouTubing, which I try and push to an extreme. All of that is moving towards something that in the future I will know, but I don't know it. So I'm trying to work it out myself, and you're watching the working out. And then when I've worked it out, you go, yeah, I think you might be right, or I don't know, or it's made me think about that, right? So all of this stuff, I don't see why it's the domain of the young. I don't see why only young people can do this. But there's an argument by why young people will be more inclined to do it, and why them doing it is of more utility to society. And I think that is the point here. So let's get onto a more normal YouTube where I talk about this in a more normal way. If you went through the great artists in history, you can plot them through, especially musicians, and you can say, right, let's take Louis Armstrong, Robert Johnson, let's take Muddy Waters, Little Richard, the Beatles, Elvis. I'm just running through the sort of biggest there are. Now, if we back up, to Louis Armstrong, the most important things he did were the Hot Fives, which he did in 1927, roughly. He was 26 years old at the time, 26. And he basically creates modern popular recorded music. Robert Johnson, he was dead by 27. His input was done by then. Who does Muddy Waters? Muddy Waters was born around, I think, around 1911. I'm not too sure. The most important work he did was in the 40s and 50s. So he was over 30, Muddy Waters. But Muddy Waters had been his creativity could well have been established when he was in his 20s, but then lay dormant until the world came looking for that sort of artistic wisdom in the music of Black America. And then when in the 1940s, when they went to Muddy Waters, he did not give them what they wanted. He did not turn around and stick the straw out of his mouth and put the overalls on and look like some sort of Jewish middle-class ideal of what an American black folk musician is. He plugged in an electric guitar. And that's the creativity. That's the spanner in the works. There's the chaos. And when Muddy Waters came to the UK in the early 60s, brought over by the trad musician Cyril Davis, can't remember. And people went to see him and he was playing an electric guitar through an amp. That shocked the UK. It changed the UK. But that was done when he was older. Elvis Presley, his greatest works, late 50s. He's born in 1935. He's literally 22, 23. Little Richard's born around about 1932, I would say, maybe 28. I don't think he ever said what his date of birth was. So Little Richard, 1955, he's 25, 26. So on the whole, the great artistic statements, the things we all respect, or all us, late middle-aged gentlemen who watch this channel and all this music behind us and all the things we talk about, because this is the zone of the middle-aged man, isn't it, my YouTube? We're celebrating music that was made by people who were just into their 20s. Here I've got in front of me Physical Graffiti by Led Zeppelin. This was made in 1974. In 1974, Led Zeppelin had made their first 5 albums, changed the world, become the biggest band in the world, become one of the biggest selling bands in the world, and one of the biggest concert attractions in the world. And Robert Plant and John Bonham were 25, 26. I mean, this is something that is apparent. Muddy Waters may have done his creative work a bit older. I know Wes Montgomery really didn't come to the fore until he was in his 40s. Alan Holdsworth didn't start to grow as an artist until he famously recorded with Soft Machines on the Bundles album in 1975 when he was 29 years old. Then he starts, by the time he's doing albums like Secrets in the late 80s, which I think are mind-blowing, he's in his late 30s. Frank Zappa was 30 in 1970, and I would say that a lot of the work he did in the 1970s when he was over 30 is very, very important work. But all those people say, yeah, but the important stuff was in the 1960s, and there's a difference. Musically, Zappa's stuff is better in the 70s than the 80s. It's conceptually more advanced. It's technically better done. It's well recorded. He has sublimated his ideas. But from a sort of cultural impact, Zappa's great cultural impact is the mothers of invention. Artists that are well known are usually well known because they did something in their early 20s that had a cultural impact, and from that gives them a cultural cash. You know, they're stood on the little step of the cultural cache that they've created. And that means from then on, they can carry on doing whatever they did before. And the audience that they've created will grow with them. In other words, if creative people that are creating at every single age, okay, every single age they are creating, but when you are young, the creative person is trying to understand the world around them, which they don't know. And in doing that, they are putting stuff out into the world because they don't know, and because they aren't experienced, they could well see the world in a different way. Okay? So the example that I'm going to use for this is the example of Harry Potter. You know, someone of my age, maybe a little bit younger, you know, the real wisdom, esoteric wisdom in which we understand the world may not be sort of the Christian story, or maybe the story of is the Islam, Muhammad. It might not be that. I tend to use the esoteric archetypal sort of storylines in Harry Potter to understand something. So Harry Potter is young, and he absolutely knows nothing about this world that he's now been introduced to. And it's a world full of magic and imagination. He enters into it in a worse situation than everybody else, with a terrible problem that he seems linked to. His destiny is to fulfill that. I believe that is like the thing of being cursed with creativity. You're destined to do this whether you like it or not. But he knows less about it. He's like the worst qualified person to solve this problem. He then hooks up with Dumbledore. And Dumbledore is the wise wizard. He knows everything. He's very wise. But because he's wise and he knows everything, he doesn't know the unknown. So he doesn't know how to solve the problem of Voldemort. He doesn't know how to solve it. Now, Voldemort is actually, it means to steal death. And so the very profound thing in Harry Potter is the fact that throughout this, it's the idea of dying. You know, Voldemort doesn't want to die. None of us want to die. We have a fear of death. We could well create and try and make stuff in response to the terror, the ultimate chaos, the black chaos, which is death to us, the unknown. And by creating, we can create some sort of order in the world that maybe points to some sort of immortality. I really think that this is the case. There's some sort of immortality there in creating something that's wonderful. Harry Potter beats Voldemort because he accepts his death in the end. It's like the Christ story. He dies and he's reborn. Voldemort tries to live forever, but is hoisted by the fact to live in an eternal torment of eternal aliveness, but not necessarily in a place which is comfortable. We all want to reside in comfort, don't we, if we're going to live forever? All these things are the things that drive people. They're the things that we consider, and it's death and the meaning of the universe which drives us to reach out to try and find some sort of meaning there. And that meaning is at once aesthetic as much as it is about truth and science and what actually the world is made out of. The material substance of the world. The young person then is equipped like Harry Potter, and when they reach out into the universe and the world and they express themselves, they could express themselves in a way which is novel and new, and we suddenly have a new idea of what beautiful is, which means we have a new idea of what good is, which means we have a new idea of what bad is and what is evil. And the artist that creates in their youth and uncovers something unique and innovative actually uncovers a new moral way of seeing the universe. And usually this makes them famous because people are so shocked and they're so inspired by the wisdom that entails that it immortalizes them. When we look at the history of music, one of the things I find that's very surprising is the fact that so many incredible musicians were dead before they got to 30. Of course, we have the famous 27 Club, but there's ones that died even before 27. Now, it's worth saying that in the 20th century, the great cultural art form started off as the cinema. That was the new art form that seemed to reach out into the common man or common woman and explain the way the world worked. And for the first half of the 20th century, the most important art form on the planet was cinema, especially Hollywood cinema. The recorded music industry, it emerges within the world of cinema. And you could see how it's treated in the same way. Elvis Presley is that halfway entity between the film star and the creative rock musician. But once we get to the 1960s, people start to look for other voices, and they start to look around for an alternative way of seeing the world, as people believe they're going towards the age of Aquarius and all this idea of the future. And young people like Bob Dylan and the Beatles are signed up, and we start to listen to what they've got to say, and they're able to put their lack of experience aside. In the Beatles' case, they're helped by the wise wizard, the Dumbledore of Abbey Road, George Martin. Dylan is coached by the wise wizards of Woody Guthrie, but then they throw in something else. And what do they throw into the mix of the 1960s? Themselves. And in searching out that voice, musicians at that time, they go, well, where else are these alternative voices? And suddenly they discover Robert Johnson, some unknown mythic person that made some records in the 1930s and then was dead by 27. And they start to listen to that music, and that music was profound in the 1930s, but it had no cultural cash, so it didn't make a grip. It sat there dormant to the 1960s until it could emerge. Robert Johnson is a household name amongst musicians, and he never knew it. He never knew it. He was just a jobbing musician, made a few records, they were local hits, that was it, then he died. He knows nothing about this. If we go through the history of music and we look at jazz, Buddy Bolden, who is supposedly, and I don't agree that he is, but we'll use that as an example. Buddy Bolden came in and sort of mythically laid the groundwork of jazz. That's the ground zero. He's Buddy Bolden. He did this in the early part of the 20th century, 1903-04. By 1905-06, he had gone insane, and he died in a mental hospital, and I think 1931, completely unknown. Many of those jazz musicians went the same way. One of the first great white jazz musicians who was a true genius was Bix Beiderbecke, and he was dead, I think, at around about the age of late 20s. From alcoholism. One of the great musicians. The blues musicians, Charlie Patton, Blind Lemon Jefferson, Robert Johnson, I've named the big three there. They were all dead before anyone could go and find them and do anything about it. They were dead. The great guitar players, first off, Eddie Lang was dead by the time in his mid-20s. Django Reinhardt lasted a little bit longer, but again, he was dead by his 40s. Charlie Christian, the real architect of electric guitar in the 20th century, was dead by the age of around about 24, 25. Jimmy Blanton, the first great virtuoso bass player, same, dead before 30. Scott LaFaro, the second greatest bass player, dead before 25. Clifford Brown, Charlie Parker, we just go through that over and over again. And then we look at the 1960s and that great explosion of musicians like Jim Morrison, like Jimi Hendrix, like Janis Joplin, all of these dead before 30. And once they're dead, they are then immortalized at that point in time, because by the 1960s, pop music had the cultural cash. It was informing culture. And so the view of youth was very, very important. When you look at painters, for example, we expect, a Rembrandt or a Michelangelo or a Turner to be really creating their greatest work in middle age, if not old age, if not late old age. The great 20th century abstract painter William de Kooning continually pioneered throughout his life, right up to extreme old age. And when he had Alzheimer's and did not know where he was or who he was still getting up and going down to his studio, and he was still painting like somebody that knew nothing else. And of course, those paintings are not his greatest work, obviously, but they are de Kooning paintings, and they're part of the oeuvre he created into his 90s. Same with Marc Chagall. Painters can do this, poets can do this, even filmmakers can do this. So there's a very unique thing with music. Music is visceral. It's at once visceral, and in the 20th century, it was the music of youth, and it was the music of the youth's point of view. So I think that's where this idea comes from, right? So looking at this, right, from a cultural point of view, I think there's something very specific about music that makes us think this is the case. Now, when we look at creativity and go, is there just something inherent with young people? Only what I've described before, that they will be seeing the world like a Harry Potter, you know, or a Luke Skywalker, or a Frodo Baggins. They have the secret of the future because they don't know. And once they've discovered that, then they can reside on that, become the wise one until the next person comes up and usurps them. So I think that is the case. But I believe that as we now leave the confines of 20th century art, okay, we look at the sort of movement from a modernist view of art to a postmodernist view of art to a postmodernist view of art. We are now leaving behind some of these ideas, and you can see that in our culture at the moment. A lot of the sort of ideas of identity politics, the things that I said were really important in the 1960s, hearing new voices from gay people, black people, disabled people, women, trans, you know, opening itself up to contrary voices, that has now become almost like a dogmatic ideology in itself. And so there's a push against woke ideas. I mean, woke, the word, it's very interesting, starts with Leadbelly in the 1930s with his Scottsboro Boys song. You know, it's a very valid cry of the black person in America at that time to stay awake to what's going on. And then that idea is wound all the way through the 20th century, and now it's almost an insult against those people who have those ideals. So we see that is fracturing. We see a fracturing between nationalism and open borders. Of course, the Woodstock generation wanted to tear all those borders down and not for everyone to hold hands as hippies, you know, dancing around in a circle, drinking Coca-Cola. But that's now being questioned. So we can see politically, we're going through this great big churning thing. A lot of the ideas that we held, you know, sacrosanct after Second World War, for example, the unquestioning support of the Jews with their home in Israel and the right for them to be there, which was seen like as a response to the Second World War and the totalitarian and the Nazis, that has fallen by the wayside as well. And now we're questioning that. And I think there are going to be some painful changes that happen within the arts. Now, I am a product of the second phase of rock and roll, and a lot of my mentors, the wise wizards that I grew up with, were part of the first wave. They come up in the 1960s. You know, I've known people that were in some of the biggest bands in the 1960s, and I've spoken to them about that sort of very fascinating time in the UK, the 1960s, as this generation discovered rock, not just discovered it, created rock music out of doo-wop and rock and roll. Incredible thing, and took the world over. I've spoken with them, and the excitement in their, you know, early teens of hearing Elvis Presley or Gene Vincent on the radio and it changing their lives, you know, of forming a skiffle band and the unknowingness of it, you know. So I've spoken to them. For me, it was a different thing, you know. When I came up through the 70s. Pop music was the most important thing in my school. It was the most important thing about, you know, that young people had. And you joined your tribe. I joined the heavy metal tribe, or I was in the goth tribe. Some were in the new romantic tribe. Some were in the sort of handbaggy, you know, poppy music tribe. That had already been delineated, and music was representing something new. And when we switched on top of the pops to watch the new single coming out, that we were waiting for something new, you know. And whether it's Boy George or Morrissey, these people stepping up and representing my generation, and you looking at them and going, I've never seen anybody like that. What is that? That's incredible. That new way of being was in full throat as I discovered pop music. And very quickly, by the time I was 17, I can remember sat round at my friends and when we were all watching Live Aid, and suddenly all these sort of drug-taking rock and roll types that were all gender-bending and doing all sorts of dodgy stuff that your mum and dad didn't approve of, suddenly they were good people and they were all stood up doing the right thing and saving the Africans and all this, and they started to become legends, and the whole thing started to become... an industry, and people knew how to do it. Michael Jackson came out with Thriller, produced by Quincy Jones, a product of the era before. You know, that sort of jazz arrangement skills have been, applied to popular music, and and it becomes the biggest thing on the planet. Michael Jackson becomes the biggest thing on the planet. Before he dies relatively young, he is touting around a huge statue and pulling it around the whole world as though he is the second coming. That was the era I came up in. By the time I got to the 90s and started to get involved in the music industry, the early 90s was a very creative time for music. It was very exciting. It was like my 1960s. We were listening to drum and bass and house music and hip hop and thrash metal and electronic music, Aphex Twin. There was so much really incredible music out there at the time. But it starts to atrophy, and then the internet came in. The internet seems to push us into a different age. The sort of post-industrial age is gone, and now we're into a new age, and communications changed, technology's changed, and music doesn't seem to have that cultural cash anymore, and it doesn't work well on the internet. In the 1970s, music was great because you could buy a transistor radio, go down the park and plonk it down and lie back with your mates, drink a little bit of cider and listen to the pop songs of the day. You might even take an acoustic guitar down with you and sing a few and get some cultural cash off that, and suddenly the ugly blokes are getting interest from the ladies because they were able to strum their way through a Don McLean song. All this was that era. It's gone. And all that's left is us old blokes who remember it, and we're here talking about it. But for me, just as I thought it was all over, I stumble into this creativity here. And I feel I'm being very, very creative for me. I don't know whether it means anything. I don't know if it's any good, but people seem to respond to it. I feel like I'm doing something creative. Now, this idea that was positive by Rick Beato, I think that it's a really interesting idea. And I think it's a good way of analysing rock music and being able to look at some artists like Morrissey, for example, and going, well, yes, those first 4 or 5 Smiths albums are his greatest achievement, and then he got old and he became right-wing, and you can't be right-wing nowadays, and so everyone now hates him, but he was very, very important at a time, and now he's an old man, and you have to take some of his ideas with a pinch of salt. The music he does is quite good, but it will never be the same as his music he made with Johnny Marr, blah, blah, blah. That is a way of critiquing popular music, is to use that idea. I think what I'm saying and what I've arrived at with this video is the reason why we think this is because of the criteria we apply, which is a rock and roll criteria, which in itself says this is music about young people. It's a statement of newness. And in that statement of newness and looking forward into the future, it's always people that have been young that do that. And when old people try and do it, it seems hollow and we don't trust it. And authenticity is very, very important. Being authentic, being visceral, and using the lack of ability to say something new with a new type of ability, that is the measure by which we measure music, popular music.
Into the groove, you gotta move. Get up on your feet, step to the beat. into the groove, boy. You gotta prove, boy. Oh, ooh, oh. Get up on your feet, yeah, step to the beat, boy. What will it be? Step to the beat, boy, what will it be?
I can't hear myself. I can't hear myself.
When we look at a Rembrandt painting and we look into those eyes of the old man who's painting himself as a master painter and is able to bring out every single feeling and thought and self-reflection that's in that Rembrandt painting, and we compare it to his painting when he was young and staring out at the canvas looking all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, we don't feel that that early painting is greater than the later painting, do we? So the truth is yes and no. But what I find very interesting is Rick Beato's claims about this. It will be interesting to ask him, when in his life did he feel that he was his most creative? You know, teaching jazz guitar in a university somewhere, producing other people's music, or having the creative control to create a YouTube channel that has set the standard for music YouTubing, almost creating a new way of approaching music that people like me have learnt from, and now I'm doing this. And I feel incredibly creatively fulfilled. So this morning, I get up and Rick Beato's on Facebook and he's talking about making shorts for YouTube and Instagram videos. And he said something I found very interesting. He said he really enjoys it. He enjoys the creative thing of trying to do it really good. That's the creative challenge that we all have. I'm trying to do that now. I'm trying to make a video, my long form video, an hour long, that hooked you in at the beginning, was a bit wild, settled down, and now if you followed it through, we arrive at sort of this point at the end that is the point that Rick Beato, who is making the claim that you can't create anything after 30, has created something in the music industry pretty profound in late middle age, thus contradicting the thing he said. So, what do I think? God for that. Hello? It's you again. I mean me again. It's me, you, me, it's you, it's me in the future. You and you, but I'm, yeah. I am stuck, yeah. I know normally I get to the end of a video and I have some nice profound point. I sort of got one. You know, yeah, it was a bit arse-licky, wasn't it? It was. I thought that. I think that's what put me off. Have you got any idea from the future of what happens? Where are we going with all this? You can't tell me. Why? Because it breaks the moral law of the universe. Oh, I see. So what you're saying is when we look at questions like this and we try and ask ourselves about the nature of creativity and understand it, the only way we can truly understand it is by realising that we don't understand it, because it's the unknown that gives it the power. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. And so young people have that, but old people can have it, but they have to search into the inner child to get there. Ah, yeah. There, that makes sense. And now that thing I did at the beginning makes sense. Yeah. 57-year-old bloke comes on, going to explain what creativity is, whether an old person can be creativity, and then I see that do that funny little... Anyone goes, what the hell's that? We've got nothing to do with it. But that was the point, wasn't it? You've explained it to me. You've explained what... I'm a genius, I am. A bloody genius. Thanks. Thanks, Andrew, in the future. Bye-bye. Bloody hell, I'm clever. Yeah, it was right there under your nose right at the beginning. And thus I now, after 45 minutes, I draw a circle around the video and we arrive at the end. So the question is can old people be creative? Yeah, but they have to channel their inner child. They have to see the world as a child does, which is a little bit like this. Everybody... A big bang bing diddly bang bang diddly dang dang digga digga bing bang bang diddly dang 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 bang bang boom. Yes, thank you. Subscribe, do all the things you've got to do, and I will see you on the next video. Work of genius.